I am Michael Murphy with the Los Angeles Chemtrails Outreach Group. We're here today in Venice Beach, bringing the message of chemtrail geoengineering, talking about the geoengineering drought here and handing out hundreds of DVDs of both what and why in the world are they spraying. Have a lot of great activists from around California, around Southern California today outreaching. Very critical today as we really bring this message out to the public. Of course, the mainstream media is not addressing this most important issue, so it's incumbent upon those of us who are aware of this to bring this message out. It's been not only a whole lot of fun, but it's been a very informational day, not only for us as activists exchanging information, but to those who are just walking by. A lot of people still unaware of these issues, but compared to 4 years ago when we held the same event, it's a vast difference in terms of the public's awareness. I believe now that we've hit critical mass, or I believe now we have hit critical mass, it's much easier to talk to the general public about these issues. And bottom line, people see that our weather is changing, people see that the temperature of our planet is varying, and they're wondering why. We have the answer to that. Geoengineering programs designed not only to manipulate our weather, but also to change the temperature of our planet, responsible for a lot of the changing climate that we have. And definitely California, as we've seen this polar vortex outside of California, which is geoengineered, and what it's doing, it's literally pushing the jet stream up into the north, bringing not only the moisture but warmer temperatures up into the Arctic as we see warmer temperatures. But when that jet stream corrects itself, it comes right down into the Midwest, bringing all of the Arctic weather into the Midwest and onto the East Coast, where they've experienced much lower temperatures and also a much greater degree of precipitation in terms of what's normal. So we have these vast variations not only of weather but also of our temperatures, all being blamed on climate change. However, the changing climate is largely, if not all, due to geoengineering programs. So we're out here, again, educating our public about the dangers, the damage that these programs have caused, and also about the impacts in terms of the drought and what implications this has to us as residents of California, because the drought right now is leading into Agenda 21 objectives, which is a consolidation of monetary and political power into the hands of a few, and they're literally making water the next oil. So prices are going up with water hitting the consumers on all ends, and it's all rooted in geoengineering programs. So a very important message that we're bringing out, and very proud of all the activists that took their time, energy, motivation, and their love for our planet and humanity to come out here to Venice Beach. We're having a great time. And what we're typically seeing in areas off of the Pacific, the Hawaiian Islands, Bruce Douglas has been instrumental at bringing the message of what we're calling aerosol disbursements, or Bruce coined the term chem bombs. It's the disbursement of aerosols from ships and other land-based cloud generators. Again, the goal is to put aerosols, aluminum, barium, strontium, and other substances which can manipulate both our weather and the temperature of the planet by any means possible. So now we have saturations of these toxic metals. We're finding them not only in rain tests, but expected to find them in our aerosol collection project that we've started. So we're taking airplanes up into the atmosphere. We're testing or seeking to test both the trails and the aerosol disbursements from the chemtrails. This is going to be groundbreaking because we'll do a couple of things. It will take away the plausible deniability of our scientific community and our political officials, which are stating that what we're seeing is simply condensation trails. When we photograph the disbursement coming up from a ship, and then we test and we find the primary ingredients, which we believe we will, of geoengineering programs, it will give us 100% court admissible evidence to move forward with a class action lawsuit. And again, it will take away the plausible deniability from our scientific community and our political officials. So very important objectives starting right here in California. Education is still very important. Outreaches like this, not only are they fun, but education is the first step in terms of getting people activated. So it's very important. A contrail is short for condensation trail. When an airplane flies at an elevation usually above 30,000 feet, 35,000 feet, it's very cold up there. So the heat from the engine actually forms condensation on a trail. It's usually a very short trail behind an airplane that dissipates very quickly, similar to when we breathe in cold weather. So you can see your breath for a short period of time, that quickly dissipates. Chemtrail, what people are coining the term chemtrail, is the dispersing of atmospheric aerosols for creating an artificial cloud cover. What we see typically around the world today, these long trails that do not disappear, they actually spread out, forming what appears to be an upper level cloud layer. Of course, we're testing the fallout from those, and rain tests would show the primary ingredients, aluminum, barium, strontium, and other toxins in the fallout of these programs. So that essentially is the difference. We're not at all interested in contrails. Contrails are normal. They've really been around since airplanes have been flying. Chemtrails, geoengineering programs, while they might look similar, they're vastly different.
What can people do after doing their own research? Where do they go? Recommend what to do?
Well, I think there are a lot of things that we can do. I think the better question would be, what shouldn't we do? And there's a vast number of possibilities that we can do. So the first step, as we spoke about, was getting involved here at the local level. Get a group together. We have a meetup group, Los Angeles Chemtrails meetup group, where on occasion we go out into the public arena. We hand out DVDs of what and why in the world are they spraying. Very good, effective methods for waking up the public. However, right now, geoengineers, our political officials, are moving forward with both legal and legislative initiatives. So much of our work has to be focused on action, both legislative and legal action. As we spoke before, geoengineering programs change our climate, so they are creating climate change. As a result, we now have these legal legislative initiatives which are focused on removing our money, our rights, our land, our water, and a number of other resources, and they're blaming it on CO2. So the objectives are to cut back our CO2. Being that geoengineering programs, again, change the temperature of our planet, and they're designed to manipulate our weather, they're a large factor in our, large if not most of the factor in our changing climate. And the fact that they're not in any of the climate models used by our government officials or the IPCC, it's literally incumbent upon us to bring this issue up of geoengineering as being a major source of our changing climate to our political officials, and demand that any climate talks or climate change legislation be stopped immediately, and geoengineering be stopped till we even consider moving forward with these talks. And that's critical at this moment. So we have to look at on what front they're moving forward. And what's very concerning to us is once, if a treaty which is planned, or a climate change agreement which is planned for this December of 2015 goes into effect, it will most likely create the framework for the legalization of geoengineering programs. And if we allow that to happen, our hands could be tied. So it will make it much more challenging for us to address this issue. So it's critical now that we awaken not only our communities, but also our political officials and scientific community to the impact of geoengineering programs in terms of how it changes our climate and changes our precipitation. I think we'll vastly see a difference in terms of how we move forward on this issue.
Any closing thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, you know, I'm grateful to see this movement grow. It's we've been in it for several years, and the dynamics have changed dramatically in just the past 3 years. So I think if we continue to not only educate our community, but look at our activism and recognize how we must change with the diversity of our political system and also our scientific community, and really adjust. So education is very critical, and I encourage everybody to get out, as we are today, as many activists are around the world, educating the public. But also I think it's really equally important is that we focus in a prudent way in addressing this both politically and scientifically.
This is Bruce Douglas from Maui, from MauiSkywatch.org, out here at Venice Beach. So there's two aspects: the chemtrails from the plane and the aerosol explosions coming from boats out over the ocean where no one's looking. But if you look on the satellite images, you'll see these things that look like explosions. And then instead of going in the wind direction of the lower clouds, you see them go with the high-speed stratospheric clouds, the opposite direction of the lower level clouds. It's easy to track and see what's going on. That's what's really happening out there in the geoengineering world. Chemtrails is old school. Chem bombs is the new way they're doing it. See, what's happening is chemtrails in the stratosphere from planes don't actually generate clouds because there's not enough moisture in the stratosphere to create a cloud. And so they dissipate into a haze. So when you see those lines streaking across the sky, they generally dissipate into a haze. The aerosol clouds that we're seeing floating in the stratosphere have to be generated from the ground level. That's why they're expelling them from boats out of the ocean, particularly in tropical areas where there's a lot of moisture. It sequesters the moisture from the lower level atmosphere, rises it up into the stratosphere, and then takes off in stratospheric wind directions at high speed across America and other parts of the world. So that's how they're generating the clouds that is dimming our light feeding the planet. We often see chemtrails spraying into existing aerosol clouds, like they're tweaking the formula, doing something to the formula. So people think sometimes they see a chemtrail going, they think, oh, those aerosol clouds are creating the chemtrail. Not so. The chemtrails came from the boats and from land-based disbursements across the world and created those clouds, and the chemtrails are just going through those. So that's why I'm trying to emphasize two aspects going on here. It's all a part of geoengineering, which is manipulating the weather. Also, by putting the aerosols into the clouds, they're ionizing the clouds, creating ionic particles in it that make it easier for HAARP and the other sort of electronic mechanisms to move weather patterns around. Once you aerosolize the cloud layer, then you can actually move the weather layers very easily. So they're aerosolizing into the jet streams out of the ocean, going right underneath where the jet streams are going. They're expelling aerosols from boats. It's captured in the jet streams and going across. And then it's really easy for HAARP and the other sorts of HAARP antennas to move those clouds around because they're aerosolized. So they're all used in harmony together in order to manipulate the weather and decide if we can have a drought, if we can have a rain, if we can have a storm. And it's actually the source of climate change, what we're calling right now climate change, is actually being engineered. Very important. It's not just random, it's not just our CO2. CO2 is a part of it. But the big thing that's causing the extreme in temperatures is a geoengineering project. And the distraction is people thinking it's CO2. It's more than that. Very interesting phenomena being noticed in the Arctics, particularly in Greenland, but also in the North and South Poles, is black soot is appearing over the ice. If you Google black ice over Arctic, you'll see lots of pictures of vast areas of black coal dust floating over. Well, a researcher named Marvin Herndon out of San Diego looked at the blueprint of what's coming down on the rain patterns, the rain captures we're doing from the aerosol clouds. And he sees the very print of coal fly ash in it. So he's determined that one of the major products that's being used, that are being expelled from the boats and probably also from the planes, is coal fly ash. Now what that is, coal is very toxic when it burns, and there's electrostatic precipitators that draw in the chimneys that suck the coal fly ash, the most toxic elements, the lightest weight elements, the toxic elements of the coal, and suck it out of the chimneys and grab a hold of it, and then it becomes a waste product. Well, apparently what's happening is they're using that waste product in the aerosol clouds, and in it contains the aluminum, the barium, the strontium, the titanium, and exactly the print of the metals that we're finding precipitating down in our rain samples is the blueprint of fly ash. And we're also seeing it landing all over the Arctic areas. Now understand, in the stratosphere winds in the northern hemisphere go from the west to the east and spiral around and eventually end up at the North Pole. They also go toward the north. The southern hemisphere, they go the other direction, and they spiral around and end up at the South Pole. So any glop that we're spraying into our stratosphere eventually ends up at the North and South Pole, where the stratosphere is half the distance from the Earth as at the equator, and it precipitates down in the polar region. So imagine all the stuff we're doing around the equator, the chem bomb action, winding its way to the poles, precipitating down in the North and South Pole, which now is the way that we believe they're getting the black ice that we're seeing. If you Google black ice in the Arctic, you'll see so many pictures of it. And black ice, you understand what that does, is accelerating the melting of the ice. Why would they accelerate the melting of the ice? Well, if you melt the North Pole, there's tremendous oil reserves underneath the North Pole they can now get to, and the shipping lanes open up. If you melt the South Pole, there's incredible reserves of gold, palladium, and precious minerals underneath the Antarctic that they can't get to until they melt the ice out of the way. That's just a few of the agendas that may be going on. There's a lot of agendas involved. Also, if you know you're going to create a drought in the Midwest, then you can make a ton of money on the futures market because you know when the drought's going to happen. You can predict it. So if you're on the end of knowing when a drought or a rain is going to happen, billions of dollars being made in the futures market. Many agendas at work. I can't say it's any one agenda or the other. They're all involved.